So here's flash news for you guys. There's way too much inventory out there, right? Raw materials, these guys are swimming in inventory. And I think you may have heard this a couple of weeks ago. There was another speaker who talked about too much inventory, and then there was a company called PharmaSense. I don't know how many of you attended that, and they talked about inventory in hospitals, and they tried to optimize it. So we're kind of like that, but there's a significant difference between what they do and what we do, and we'll talk about all that. So, but we focus on a couple of different verticals, the food industry and the automotive industry. And automotive industry, I'll tell you from my experience, they have lots and lots of inventory. These suppliers are either sitting on too much inventory, and to be actually precise, what's happening is they are having what we call the problem of bimodal inventory distribution. That's too much of the wrong materials and too little of the right materials. So it's not necessarily too much of all the inventory, all the materials, but it's too much of the wrong materials and then too little of the wrong materials, or the right materials. You get that, right? Yeah. So that's the problem, and we geeks call it bimodal inventory distribution. And that's the problem we solve. And the way we solve it is kind of different from other companies in this industry. So we're not purely an analytics provider. So we're not an analytics provider, but we also provide ERP software. So how many of you heard ERP? Yeah. So the big names in this industry are SAP and Oracle, and we're the teeny tiny David. And I used to be in IBM for many years, and so I have SAP implementation experience, and I did consulting with IBM and all that. So that led us to start this company. So we have the core ERP module. So this is ERP, if you don't know about ERP, is the most critical part of a company's backbone. Because we run the entire operation of the company. So we have the finance, the manufacturing, the sales, purchasing, human resources, and of course supply chain integration. So we offer all that. So how are we different from SAP and Oracle? We're different in the sense that first, we're on the cloud, okay? And second, we are a multi-tenant cloud provider. So all these SAP and Oracle that's been installed in millions of companies all worldwide, they're installed on local servers in these companies, right? Whereas we are on the cloud, and the cloud provider, we have our cloud, servers at a data center here in RTP, in RTP. So that's where we have, and then of course we have disaster recovery in AWS. So we provide that. So when we go into a company and we say we can reduce their inventory and optimize the inventory, the first thing we do is replace their ERP system. And a simple way to explain this is we're taking these companies from landlines to smartphones. So there's a lot more flexibility being on the cloud, and lots of flexibility. You can do a lot more things. Imagine this. Can you do the things you're doing on a smartphone on your landline? You just can't, right? So that's the kind of stuff we do. And if you're familiar with Google Waze, it tells you where there's going to be a traffic jam or an accident, and it reroutes you. So think of us along the same lines, and that's what we're doing for these automotive suppliers. So the big difference between the company that spoke a couple of weeks ago and us is that we're not just taking the company's data and then giving them some results back, but we also provide the ERP backbone on the cloud and provide the predictive intelligence capabilities to help them reduce inventory costs. So let me just pause for a second and see how you guys are able to process all that. So that's the big difference. So let me just pause here. Any questions so far on what I've said? No questions? It's all crystal clear? I'm going to ask you guys questions at the end of this if you don't ask me. But that's the fundamental difference, okay? So we provide the ERP plus the predictive intelligence capabilities, that deep analytics and all that. And we've been very successful in the automotive space in terms of reducing the inventory costs. In early May, this factory up in Michigan, there was an explosion, and this caused major problems to, like I said, Ford. So Ford's most profitable line is the F-150s. So that's the most profitable line, and that was disrupted for at least a couple of weeks because of this factory fire. Same case with Mercedes-Benz factory down in Alabama. They were also disrupted by this. So their SUVs, highly profitable SUVs, that line has been shut down because of this factory fire. Okay. So that's costing these guys millions and billions. in terms of lost sales and lost revenues and profits. So you're going to ask, so how can we predict this and stop this with help these OEMs out with our software? So I have a theory. Things don't happen spontaneously. So these kind of things don't happen spontaneously. There's probably some kind of a data that was resident in this enterprise, if shared with the OEMs and supply chain partners, would have helped Mercedes and Ford better prepare for this kind of a disruption. Does that make sense? It's the lack of visibility that's preventing the supply chain partners from preparing for these kind of disruptions. If there was some kind of a safety violation, which I'm sure there was in this case, prior to this accident happening, if they had the data, or if Mercedes had the data, they could have planned for it, and like Google Waze does, rerouted and had a supply chain backup strategy. Does that make sense? So my theory is that these things don't happen spontaneously, and just like Amazon is able to predict when you need the next set of Tide box or Tide detergent, we have the data to predict this because we're able to combine the data from our supply chain partners as well as the OEMs and bring that together, include things like traffic patterns and any safety violations, when their work centers are down, when their machines are down. We're able to do all that and combine all that and predict potential disruptions. So that's the big difference. But at the foundation is we have the ERP platform where we collect all kinds of data. Everything from the operational data, the manufacturing data, the scans, the machinery, what's happening with the machinery, when the machinery is being updated or being repaired. All that data is being collected in our system, and with that we can provide early warning data, predictive intelligence kind of information to the OEMs as well as the suppliers. Okay. So this is what we talked about, the bimodal inventory distribution. At the heart of it, so when we go talk to a customer, we don't say we are here to replace an ERP because ERP has had such a bad name and bad reputation, and I cannot tell you honestly that there has been a successful ERP implementation to date. If someone is telling you they've successfully implemented SAP or Oracle, they're lying to you. Because most of these implementations have been a huge disaster. It's been, it's cost millions of dollars, and it's, in terms of the adoption rates, it's really poor. The usability is really bad. I mean, people who have gone through this implementation will tell you that it's usually a disaster. It's very expensive. So when we come in as a smaller company and talk to a prospect and say we want to replace the ERP, the first response is going to be, we don't want to go down this path again. Even though the users really hate it, they would rather live with the pain than switch to a new ERP. And the joke is that when a company tries to implement an ERP, their supply chain partners, the first thing they do is they build up the products and then say, we're going to prepare for disruption and deliveries from the supplier. So we're going to build up the raw material inventory knowing fully well that there's going to be a failure. So we don't go talk to these 5 minutes? Okay. So we don't go talk to customers and say, hey, replace the ERP, because the first thing they're going to say is, no, let's not do that. We don't want to do this. So we go talk to them about optimizing the supply chain, to the inventory, which we know is going to be significant. The companies we go talk to, they're sitting on way too much raw material. So too much raw material is bad because it affects the balance sheet and it's not a profitable thing, and we help them improve the inventory turns, and the way we can do that is through better predictive intelligence, and that's what we do. Okay? So that's what the bimodal inventory distribution is, and bimodal inventory distribution, if I can go back to this for a second, is exactly what we showed you, is it's too little of the right items and too much of the wrong items. So you want to be in the middle, and that's what we help get these companies to. And there's a metric for this, it's called inventory turns, and we help these suppliers improve the inventory turns, which means faster, turns of inventory. the inventory is passing through their facility fast, it's not getting stuck in one place, and we help them improve their profitability and cash flow. So fundamentally, what we do at heart is we're taking the information from the OEM, the consumer, and the suppliers across the multiple tiers of supply chain, both upstream and downstream, and bring that together and giving the data in a single place, in a single platform. So the ERPs of all these systems, we're bringing all that together, connecting all of them together, and then giving them the opportunity to have better predictive intelligence, just like Google Waze is doing. They're taking data from all you guys, where you are located on a street, and then from there, being able to predict if there's going to be a crash, you need to take a different route, etc. So that's what we're doing in the B2B world. So this is what we did for a Honda Tier 1 supplier in South Carolina. So we were able to reduce $1 million in inventory in 4 weeks. In 4 weeks, by using this technology. So we're able to combine Honda's data with the supplier's data and help them reduce the inventory on hand. So they were sitting on significant amount of inventory, and this was, we were able to do this significant reduction. So in the automotive space, one key requirement is that the suppliers should not shut down the OEM's production line. If they shut it down like the Michigan supplier did, it's going to cost millions and millions, not only to the OEM, but they're going to pass some or most of that cost back to the supplier. And that could really bankrupt the supplier. So what these guys do is, just to avoid that, they buy too much inventory, and a lack of visibility on the OEM's needs, that means they'll end up buying too much inventory, right? So we help them optimize it at the same time avoiding shutdowns, as that's what we're able to do for the supplier in South Carolina. So this is what we did. We were able to converge and merge the data from various enterprises within a supply chain. On the left side is what most companies and supply chains, where they operate. We were able to bring these guys to the right side and provide the supply chain predictive intelligence capability because of that. And at the same time, replace their legacy ERP system as well. So this is also something we see very frequently in the customers that we see, is that there are very few companies where they operate on a level 3 or level 4 or level 5 in terms of organizational maturity. Most companies are just shipping products and collecting data. They haven't gone to the level of maturity or sophistication where they can actually predict, improve processes, measure results. That is an exception, especially the small and medium-sized companies. So what we're doing is we're helping these companies get to that stage, and we're not just offering them technology assets, but we're also offering something called Supply Chain Academy, where we're bringing the competence and excellence of these suppliers, right? So we call that Supply Chain Academy, and we're getting the people to go from becoming more qualified in terms of supply chain processes, giving them the training, the process orientation. Believe it or not, most people in these plants they do not have the process orientation. So they come into the job every day, they want to get the products out the door, they put in the data as little as possible, and then what they don't focus on is how do they improve the processes and analyze and all that. That mindset is non-existent. And I'm not stereotyping. This is what we see. So we try to get them to the process orientation, get them to think in terms of continuous improvement, and then the culture as well. So all that is, we work on that. And then on the process side, that's what we focus on as well. And then from a best practice, we help them adopt 5S and theory of constraints, etc. So we not just the technology assets, we provide these Supply Chain Academy concepts, processes, best practices as well. Okay. All right, so I'll stop at this point. Let me look at my time. Do we have 2 minutes? Yeah? Okay, so the final thing that I want to kind of highlight is we see a prevalence of Excel and Access databases. So one of the indicators of a failed ERP implementation is amount of Excel spreadsheets and how much they use how often do they use Excel to kind of complement the ERP implementation. If the ERP doesn't satisfy their basic needs, what people do is they'll dump the data into an Excel and then do all kinds of analysis using Excel. So my personal goal, is to kill Excel in these companies, right? That's what I want to do. I want to really kill. Someone's clapping. Is that a good thing? You agree with? Yeah. Excel, I'll tell you, is the scourge of these enterprises. Because by the time they get the data downloaded into Excel, the data is already obsolete and outdated. So that's where we come in. So in our system, we have in excess of 100 reports, standard reports that we offer. And that's the other thing with these ERP systems. Most of the ERP systems don't have the reporting capability that we do. So we have 100 reports out of the box, standard reports that should meet most of these companies' needs. And not only that, we can also provide the predictive part in these reports. So we can predict when these guys are going to run on raw materials so they can calibrate their raw material acquisition. So that's what we offer in terms, that's my goal. When I die, my epitaph should say I killed Excel at these companies. All right, so I get the warning now saying I'm out of time. So questions now?